Hello and welcome to our Introduction to Nordic Skiing live Q&A. First of all, thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Donald Musk. I head up the membership and marketing team at BASI, and I'm joined tonight by some fantastic guests. We've got two of our Nordic trainers on the call. We've got Ewan Martin, who's going to be delivering a bit of a presentation for us, and we've got Tanya Noakes, who's going to be helping Ewan with answering some of your questions at the end. So before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping, how this works. If you've not used Teams software before, if you're on a laptop or a desktop computer, you'll see a questions box on the right-hand side of your screen. You can type your questions in there at any point. We're going to wait until the end of the session to answer questions. So just don't worry, we're not answering them straight away. You can type them in anytime. If you're on a phone or a tablet, then there's a little questions icon at the top of the screen you have to press to type your question in. Right, that's it from me. So before we get started, we're going to watch a bit of a video to get us in the mood. When it decides to pray. Apologies. There we go. And now I'm going to hand you over to Ewan to start the presentation.
Okay, welcome. That was Johannes Kleber, who, young Norwegian, 24 years old, who won 3 gold medals at the recent World Championships. So that gives you an idea of where our sport is. That's it at its most dynamic. So having watched that, I'm sure, like myself, whatever your background, just stand up now, get yourself a little bit of space, whether you know nothing about our sport at the moment, just join some Nordic movements. So just have a stand up and do any Nordic movements that you can. Yep, so just get yourself going. We're going to do 30 seconds of that, just so you get a little bit of feeling of what it was like for Klæbo there today. Okay, well done. So I'm just going to start by making us aware of who this webinar is aimed at. And hopefully you can see on the screen, the main aim is for any of the membership that are looking at second discipline. It's for anybody starting cross-country skiing, and any of you looking to move towards the Nordic level 1. And hopefully in the next few minutes, I'll give you some background and you'll see that this is quite an achievable aim. So that's what this is aimed at. There could well be people watching tonight who are already Nordic members, already Nordic skiers, and that's great. You know, just follow along and we'll see how it goes. So what is cross-country skiing? And if I start with that, so I'm starting from the premise that some people maybe have never had skis, Nordic skis on. You're considering it. What do you want to do? So for most of this, I'm just going to stand up. It's easier. If you, in any of the ski areas, you'll see the Nordic tracks where there is the thin tracks. That's what we've had for a long time, and that is the classic skiing. And in the classic skiing, we've got two techniques. One of them for the uphill, and it's basically running. It's what you saw young Klæbo doing, where that's the diagonal stride for uphill. When we're on the flat and the slight downhill, we use double poling. And that, for the Alpine skiers, you're aware of. It's the same technique, but obviously the equipment is different. So if I start with a ski, so a classic ski, very roughly, it's about 20 centimeters higher than yourself. And the modern classic ski, if you see underneath, we have a skin. And that goes from the heel, same distance forward. So with the classic ski, when you put all your weight on it, that gives you the platform to jump forward and continue that process. So that's how the classic ski works. Up until 3 years ago, we never had the skins, and the base of the ski, we put on a grip wax to allow us to grip. So that's the classic ski. The shoe that fits the classic ski has a relatively soft base, which allows the shoe to do that. And it's actually more like a training shoe. It's quite soft. Lots of different systems, but they click in so that you can walk and run with it. And the classic pole, again, very roughly, it will just fit under your arm. Yep. So that's the equipment for classic. The other technique we have is skating. And again, for the Alpine people, you use skating when you have to move along flat areas. So with the skating, we've got one technique for going uphill. We call it, and we use a gearing system, so we call that skate 1. And again, when we're on the flat, we have another technique, skate 2, which allows us to skate on the flat. And we'll show a couple of video clips afterwards on that. The skating ski, it's shorter, and the base, exactly like your Alpine ski, it is only glide wax. And for them to work efficiently, getting the correct temperature of wax is really important. I think maybe the main thing to highlight with both these skis, when you compare them to your Alpine skis, it's about a 40 mil center, and maybe it depends whether they're straight like this or the skating one maybe opens up to 44. So you've only got about, yeah, much less than you would normally under your foot. The difference you can maybe see with the skating shoe or the skating boot. The first thing is the base is much stiffer. That's the key thing. And then it sits higher, and like on this one, you've got a strong plastic band so that you get much more ankle support. And this is because our propulsion from skating is from standing on one leg, the hip leads, and we're ski. So much more support from the skating. You get combi boots, which are fine, but absolutely recommend the 2 sets because the difference it makes to your performance, it's quite important. Just for interest at this moment, that's hopefully given you an indicator of the 2 types of skiing that we have in Nordic. And for the level 1 course, it's split between skating and classic. And just for interest, we also have our touring ski, which has a more robust boot. It's a wider ski, and generally they've got some side cut, and that's for walking, for ski touring in Nordic terrain in the mountains. And finally, as we come closer to the Alpine equipment, the skis are basically the same. The telemarking is also part of the Nordic, and then we're onto the same skis as the Alpine and a not dissimilar strong plastic boot. But as most of you are hopefully aware, we've got telemark as a separate discipline now. But that was just to mention it. I think this was the last one. With skating, the skating pole is going to be somewhere between chin and nose. So you've got considerably longer poles for skating than we do for classic. So that's a little bit of information first about the two separate disciplines, skating and classic. I mentioned the two techniques in classic, which are diagonal stride and double poling. And then in skating, we have skate 1 and skate 2. And I think we're going to get a short video. The video's from a few years back, Keith Jens, one of the trainers, and this is just a couple of clips for you to watch, just so you've got an image of what I've been talking about. So we'll have a look at them for a moment. Keith's video, I don't know if we saw that very well, but it doesn't matter. We'll come back to that, and at the end, there's links to some other videos for you to watch so that you can get more information about that. So, cross-country skiing, what are the benefits? Health-wise, you develop power, strength, agility, endurance. Everything we're doing is out in the fresh air. The cross training for so many other sports is immeasurable. Confidence it gives you, and not least the development of balance. If you think of the big plastic boot that you're in, giving immense support on a 70, 80 centimeter base, and then compare that to our skinny skis and soft boots. That's me moving on to the skiing side. So skiing wise, for those of you that are moving on to do a speed test, the start of that, the skating, it's really, you'll get so much benefit from learning to skate well. The amount of using your hip to lead will make a massive difference. So that alone is a great benefit. I started on balance already, talked about hip lead. Skating into GS turns, how it will develop your movements will be fantastic. The other thing, by transferring onto cross-country skis, your understanding, your analysis of the techniques will be improved in everything else you're doing. So that's some of the benefits I see, and I'm very interested to hear, you know, the benefits from other people as well. The next thing I'm going to move on to is the fundamentals, and for Alpine skiers, telemark skiers, for snowboarders, we have the fundamentals. And in Nordic, there's a slight difference, but let me start at the bottom. Steering, edge, rotation, and pressure. I think that's pretty much the same as with Alpine. So our downhill techniques are based on the same principles. What we have in Nordic that's different is propulsion, because it's not just gravity. We're on the flat and we're going uphill. You remember the two first gears. In classic, it's diagonal stride. In diagonal stride, you're only ever on one leg. The same as with running. We're there, there, there. So that same thing as running, you're on a single leg. Therefore, weight transfer is so important. When we're skating, we stand on that leg. That's me skating. I bring the legs together, the hip leads, I'm out of balance. And I step, jump onto the other leg. Again, we're only ever on a single leg. So the weight transfer is so important for everything we're doing. Power, once you have the weight transfer, then we can put more power in, and that just depends physically on your strength. Timing, combined with the above two, is what will bring flow into your skiing and put everything together. So the next bit now, and unfortunately, this is one of the challenges. I've got to share this with you. I've never been nervous about taking a ski lesson for the last 20 years. Talking to a screen and trying to do it where I can't see who I'm talking to is actually quite challenging. So wherever you are, if you now stand up again, and just lovely if you've got a little bit of space around you, and I'm going to go to the top and look at the fundamentals of body management. And where I want to start with is, just join me as I'm doing this, but look at the image, and this is me linking all skiing together. Stand in your basic stance. Yeah, so just stand in your basic stance. Now I'm going to do diagonal stride. Back to the stance. I'm now going to skate. There we go. I'm now sliding. I'm now ploughing. I'm now paralleling. I'm now telemarking. Back to that stance. This stability, this connection, holding everything together is vital. We talk about core stability, and I've got Joy with me just now. I'm just going to have help just to show you this, and this is an exercise I'd like you to join with us, and I'll just talk through it as I hope we can see. Let me just check. I'm going to move the screen for a moment. Right, so if you can lie down in the same way that Joy is doing here. So you're lying down with your knees bent, your feet flat, and importantly, your hands pressed onto the floor. And just take a moment relaxing there. And what I'm going to ask you to do is press your hands into the floor. And as you do that, do you begin to feel something happening in the core? Yeah, just relax the hands and then just press down again until you get that feeling. So again, because I can't get replies from you at the moment, but I'm going to suggest what you felt was a tightening. And if we talk about that as activating the core. So with all of our Nordic skiing, here's our basic stance. First thing we do, flex at the ankles until the knees come over the toes. That's number one before we start moving. Number two, activate. That feeling you've just had when you were on the floor, that's number two. Number three, I'll show you from the front and then from the side, but just keep the body stable, but let the hips move forward until you come out of balance. So from this position here, ankles, stabilize, and then let the hips move forward until you're out of balance. Once you have that feeling, that is how we start moving on. Your posture is correct. And the important thing, I'll stick with this for a bit because this is the single thing that will make a massive difference to your skiing. You see where my hips are now, but as I lean forward, maybe 2 centimeters, maybe 4, 5 centimeters, but being continually in that position with the hips forward, you are creating momentum. So everything about the posture and then 1, 2, 3 is going to make a big difference for you. Okay, if we remember with classic, what was the first activity? Diagonal stride. We think of that as running, but hopefully you've got some space now and just stand there. Number one, number two, we just lean forward slightly, but this time just start with the arms. I'll do this from the side for you so you see. And then, can you coordinate it? That opposite leg and one. It's great. Just this is an exercise you can practice yourself if you have a mirror, and you can practice it. Do exercises like closing your eyes to develop your balance while doing it. The second one on classic was double poling. Again, just stand in that position. And again, I'll do it from the side. Before I say anything, just how would you describe the angle of my arms and the position of my arms? So just say that to yourself, how you describe what you're seeing. And what I'm seeing and doing is that my arm has about a 90-degree angle here. Hands are somewhat about shoulder height, but the elbows are well forward of the body. Now, keeping that position, bring them back. And for now, if you think of that as the exercise, okay? And again, for the Alpine skiers, we all understand when we talk about input, what we're doing. The faster we go, the more power we put in, it will create that through speed. But that is the poling action. Okay? So with skating, and we saw the picture from Keith, let me first, and this is how we introduce skating. Stand in your basic stance, and now move your heels together. And if you look down, your feet are, there's probably a 90-degree angle there. Number one, flex at the ankles. Number two, stabilize. And now, as you lean forward with your skate skis on, the skis will start moving. So now you have that assistance and you can start skating. So going uphill, we have our skis wider, and to allow us to skate up the hill, we offset the ski poles. We have a lead arm and a rear arm, and we're poling on one side. That was skate one. Skate two, we've already done double poling. The arm action is the same, and we're skating each time our legs come together. So getting the good double poling from the start will help with our skating. So that was the main thing I wanted to talk about with the fundamentals. The exercises we've done just now was just a hint, just an introduction, but there's so much that you can do indoors, dry training to make it work. The biggest thing that limits people is fitness and strength. We saw Johannes Kleber at the beginning, one of the fittest people in the world. The heart and lungs, the strength, the power, the agility they have is immense. And for most of us, that's our limiting factor. So the better you are, and normal sort of cross training where you're doing some running, some cycling, that's all going to help you. And there's also nowadays a huge amount of upper body strength as people get into competition more. We have a Nordic Central theme. I wasn't going to dwell on that this evening because that is more of a teaching progression, a teaching pathway, exactly the same as the central theme is in the Alpine. So I'm not going to talk about that. We'll just pass on. I'll let you read this yourselves. I talked about the benefits of cross-country skiing. This is from a very experienced Alpine skier who joined us for a level 1 last year. I'll let you have a read of it. So that was, or that is a little quote from Jazz, who, like I said, has recently enjoyed one of the Nordic Level 1 courses. What's next for yourselves, if you're interested in this, we're going to have some more Nordic CPD webinars. This summer, Keith Jens, one of the trainers who's based in the south of England, will be running a variety of roller ski level 1 courses and also some CPD days. So these will be advertised soon. Tanya, who's based in Chamonix, will be running a level, or it will be on offer, a level 1, 2 and 3 course in mid-January next year. And so long as we have enough people interested in that course, both Tanya and I will be working on that, and prior to the course and after the course we'll be running taster and CPD days. So that's an option for people in the Alps. I didn't mention at the beginning, I'm sitting in a wax room in Vennebu Hotel, which is in the mountains in Norway, just north of Lillehammer. And I live in Norway, and I'm available to be running courses and doing stuff in Norway. I think Donald will probably come back to his little bit in a moment, because in fact I'll leave that to you, Donald, when you mention it's. In fact, do you want to do it now?
I can just jump in just now. So the next stage, and what we're trying to do here is see if people from other disciplines would be interested in trying Nordic. So we're going to offer an Intro to Nordic CPD, which will be a one-day CPD that members from any discipline can attend to refresh their qualifications. So we'll have a couple of dates in the summer for a roller ski version of this that Keith Jans will be running. It'll be the 19th and 20th of June at Tidsworth. So that should be up on the website for booking from tomorrow. And we're also hopefully going to have an early season date in Chamonix with Tanya, who's on this presentation. And if you're interested in doing other Nordic courses, we'd ask that you pop a course request through our course request function on the BASI website. So if you go to the BASI website and hover over courses at the top, there's a course request option there, and you can fill one of those in and let us know what you'd like us to run, and then we can action that. I think that's it from me, Ewan.
Thank you. Thank you, Donald. Am I back on? Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Donald. Something else to mention during the transition to a new management system within BASI, the flexibility that as trainers we have now is greater. And as Donald said, put the requests in, and equally, as soon as, or if you have a small group of 4 or 5 people, then please get in touch, and we will make things happen. And if there's a group already somewhere, we can move there and make that course happen. So I think there's a lot more flexibility and a lot more options available for people. So hopefully that's going to work. The next 2 bits, I would say I've got a wonderful video, a short video now that brings together, it's amusing, but it really does bring together Alpine and Nordic. And yes, half the skiers on this film are wearing equipment like this. So just have that in mind as you watch this video. And when we finish the video, or during the video, any questions you have, please type them in, and Tanya and I will take time, to answer anything we can. What we will be answering now is any questions relevant to beginners and the level 1 course. If there are other questions beyond that, please put them in, and between Tanya and I, we will do 2 things. We'll make sure in the next couple of days we get an answer to you, but equally that will help us towards the next webinar that's being run to give us guidelines on what people are looking for or what people are asking about. So I think we're ready to move on to the next video, which we've chosen a little French number for you here. Hope you enjoy it.
Je vous confie la chose qui a le plus de valeur à mes yeux. Mettez-la en lieu sûr.
Oh putain les gars, matez-moi ces cuisses là.
Les gars, la il y a des trous poumons, c'est avant. Reçu en intérieur. Vraiment besoin de retraite. Allez, on chope aussi. Oh putain, on a pas passé, faire un saut.
Bon les gars, faut y aller.
Sniper, attention, il arrive au piège de l'air.
Monsieur Fourcade, on a eu un petit contretemps. Vous êtes tous aussi cons à qui
Okay. I certainly for myself, I imagine for most of you, we didn't get the flow in the video that we wanted. However, Team Veloce, there's 3 videos in that series. Just go onto YouTube and have a look, because we actually missed a lot of the great stuff. But it's really just showing what can be done on skinny skis. So after we finish this evening, go onto YouTube and find that movie and enjoy it.
I've popped the link for that video in the announcements, Ewan, so they should all be able to see that, all the attendees, so they'll be able to watch
Fantastic.
it.
So I think we're ready for any of the questions. If there have been any questions that have come in, Tanya and I are ready.
Yeah, we've got one here. How much preparation is generally needed before attending a level 1?
I'm thinking, if we talk about let's go from 0 for an Alpine skier, let's say good level 2 with experience. Therefore, so much of the crossover skills are already there. The understanding, the learning process, the skiing is all there. And let's just say that after, let's take a good scenario, that if somebody got a little bit of coaching at the beginning to get them started, then 100-200 kilometers on skis. If they're getting continual development, if they're skiing with other people that are good or getting some coaching. So it's totally realistic within a season to get to that level. Tanya, how would you say anything? Because you've had quite a few of these people.
Obviously, it's difficult, isn't it? How long is a piece of string? It depends on how often the person goes out, whether they do a mix of classic and skate, because obviously you do need to do both at level 1. So ideally, people turning up for level 1 have done a little bit of both classic and skate, and they have an awareness of the different gears, and and with that awareness, I think the 1 to 200, was it 200 kilometers of skiing, ideally that's been done in short bursts rather than in like 1 or 2 sessions, because I definitely have a few friends out in Chamonix who could easily go out and do 50k and only on skate or only on classic. So I think a little bit of both, and within the season, certainly it's conceivable to do a level 1.
I would also I'd add to that. We've run a lot of training camps with young guys and girls in their 20s, and I've seen fit, strong young people at the end of 2 weeks, their technical performance is pretty close. So you're looking at 60 hours worth of skiing, but with continual instruction and starting from a good base. So I would say the same. People like myself and Tanya, we would happily, a week on classic and a week on skating where you're doing 30, 40 hours, you'd get to that level. But the reality is that would be spread over a longer period. So I don't know if that helps to answer the question a little bit.
I'm sure it does. Another question that we've got in is, which is harder, skating or classic?
I will answer very much the current thinking that to do classic well takes more time, because the skating action, certainly for alpine skiers or people that are active, maybe have done blading and other things, that the skating action you can get moving quite quickly, but at the same time you can get moving quite quickly on diagonal stride. And with the skis with skins on, so that you're taking away that huge variable of getting the wax correct, that it's much easier now. So you can after a few days on either discipline, you can be at a level. But I would certainly say that for younger people, they're picking up the skating much quicker.
Good stuff. And another question that we've got, and Tanya, did you want to comment on that, or? No.
I agree with you, and on that, that's why I'm not. I think that at a higher level, it's often more challenging for people to do classic well, diagonal stride particularly, and yeah.
Perfect. And another question we've got: and how many kilometers is an average day for a cross-country instructor?
All I'm going to do is point to my talented colleague Tanya here. She spent a winter skiing from the south of Norway to the north, 2,500 plus kilometers. So, but she's not average. So, what can be done? This time last year in the COVID time, a lot of the Norwegians were out doing distance in March, April time, and there was a new record, which it was just over 300 kilometers in 24 hours. So that's at the extreme end. For an older gentleman like myself, I can happily do 20 kilometers a day and pretty much do that every day. It's a lot less pounding on your legs. It's yeah, in many ways like cycling, that you can do relatively good distances. Yeah, but over to you, Tanya, because you're the athlete.
I think you're answering these questions very succinctly. You know, it definitely varies, but when you're teaching and working, it depends, of course, on the level and the fitness of the group that you're teaching. It's conceivable that you could have quite an intense day of instruction and you've only done 5 or 10 kilometers in the morning and the same in the afternoon. But of course, there could be days where you're doing both technique and technique to fatigue sessions, and you might end up doing 50 Ks with your group, 25 in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. So it does vary.
Cool. And another question we've got in, do you think there's a benefit to learning to teach another sport on skis for your alpine teaching and vice versa?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been teaching a lot of alpine instructors cross-country skiing this winter, and I've learnt loads from how they've interpreted the information that I'm giving them. They've then translated that information into things that they relate to on their alpine skis, and then their interpretation has passed back into my own teaching. So I think there's so many crossover benefits, and it really shouldn't be overlooked.
Great. A few more questions here. I do a bit of Nordic touring on fairly old kit, leather boots and 75mm bindings and metal-edged fish scale skis. What would be the recommended modern touring kit? I believe Ewan's about to show you.
If I first make the separation between light touring, which means you're coming out of the tracks, or in Norway there's a lot of track touring goes on, so that people are on in the tracks but doing hut-to-hut touring. Then a ski fisher, for the last 3 decades, I've kept the same style. The E89, so it's a 90 millimeter ski, just fits in the tracks, and that's great for long distance touring where you're mainly in the tracks. Then they're 99 and they're 109. The 109 particularly is then it's a waisted ski, which actually allows you good carving and off-track touring. The wonderful thing, I don't have one handy, is that my own skis, there's so many of the skis now, you've got 2 small holes here, and you fit a skin on underneath. That makes, when you've got long climbs from the valley and stuff, it is fantastic, because you can still get a glide, not to the same degree, but you still get a glide with them, and you can still wax them. So that's absolutely the best there is. And as I'll show you, this is not the most modern boot, but the backcountry binding. So you've got a backcountry boot. So compared to what you're talking about, this setup now is pretty much what every Norwegian I see out in the mountains, what I'm using, what we rent here, and what's being used now. You get fantastic stability with them. They're much lighter. So yes, what to upgrade to, without question, is this type of boot with a backcountry binding, and then this type of ski, anything 89, 99, 109, with the half skin underneath.
Perfect. Another question, people with a running background, can they pick up cross country quickly?
Tanya?
I'm trying to unmute myself.
That's you. You're good to go.
Okay.
Yep.
Can they? They obviously. Again, I'm going to say that it depends, because you do need a bit of three-dimensional awareness as well. So I think that the fitness that you get from the running background definitely helps. And when I got into cross-country skiing, I was in the military, and they selected me because I was a cross-country runner. But it is different to running. And so although there are lots of good aspects which transfer over, you do need to have, I would say, a more of a 3D awareness and better balance as well. So so definitely most runners pick it up very quickly, but there will be exceptions. And Ewan's wants to go in there. Maybe Ewan's the exception. No.
No, what Tanya says is correct, and I will just use myself as an example so that I don't offend anybody. I was also a runner, so that meant that once I picked it up, I was fit and strong and I could do long distances. But I personally was a runner. I wasn't good with ball sports. I wasn't good with a lot of other sports. And in my teaching over the last couple of decades, the young people that pick it up best are people that are multi-talented. If they're doing a selection of sports, if they have some gymnastic ability so that they've got agility, they understand movements, they're well coordinated. So the running bit is a massive help once you do that, once you've picked up all the skills. To have that motor that you can keep going is so important. And it's still, you know, about the simplest alternative training for cross-country skiing. But a general talented sportsman can pick it up. And I've seen the youngsters that have done rollerblading, it's embarrassing how quickly they pick up skating and are moving really well.
Great. I think we've got a couple more questions. One is, anything available in central Scotland? I can maybe help with that one. We don't have anything planned just now, but the course request function that I mentioned earlier in the evening, you could, if there's something you want us to run in central Scotland, you can pop a request in there, and if we get enough interest, we'll be able to put something on. Another one, would the level 1 snow sports school experience 35 hours need to be in a time scale, e.g. within the last few seasons? And would it need to be specifically Nordic or telemark? Would telemark hours count also? So I don't believe it needs to be in a time scale, and I believe we're quite flexible with the hours, but I'll maybe get these trainers to confirm that for me.
So yep, what Donald is saying is absolutely correct. What we see at the different levels is that the recommended hours are an absolute minimum. And if we can look at these hours as not being hours we have to tick off in whatever way we can, but if we can get experience teaching a group of little children, if we can get experience teaching one-on-one, if we can work with some older people, if we work in different conditions, the more variety you can get, the better it will make you. The more challenging we as ski teachers, we learn from these challenging people, the difficult customers, is what makes us better. And so I feel it's fine at level 1. We get through that, but then for the next 2 steps up, it's so important to get. And I would say even in addition to the teaching hours and stuff, it's for people to get competition. And there's so much citizen race type things that it's not a big deal, but just to feel that, to be in that environment will help a lot in your development.
If I may add about those recreational races, in my experience looking at candidates coming through at the higher levels, the recreational races, the racing does give a quickness in the movements that's essential in Nordic skiing, and without that, the crispness and the quickness of the movements just aren't there for the higher levels. So it is essential.
Perfect. We'll maybe do one final question. I'm aware we've gone over by about 10 minutes. One final question and then end it there. So the last one is, what about roller skiing? Is this a good entry in?
Ewan?
The last 15 years I've had the pleasure of training our local ski club in Norway, where we start with the youngsters when they're 6 years old on roller skis. Then it's fantastic. They sit down, they have no issues whatsoever, and within that first autumn, where they maybe have 10 sessions once a week, they're moving fantastically. That will apply, I would say, all the way up until their teenage years. They're getting introduced and they'll pick it up easily. We then see with athletes that are picking it up in their teens to their mid-20s, the same thing. They're strong, they're robust, and they can start with it and it works well. And without sort of putting age categories in any more than I have done, but with each decade after that, the option to start with it, I would, because of the risks of injury outweigh the benefits if you're starting as an older person. And yeah, so I think that was a question as an inroad using roller skiing. On the other side of it, once you can ski, then roller skiing is a fantastic training method. But that's what it is. It's training for the double poling. It's getting the distance in late summer to prepare you ready for the season. So roller skiing is fantastic. And it's one of the things we're debating, how by using a much clearer risk assessment, I would be very, very loath to be taking a total novice 50-year-old and introducing them to skiing on roller skis because of the damage they could do to themselves. So that's my thoughts on it.
Perfect. I think that's answered all the questions as well. So I just wanted to first of all say a massive thanks to both Ewan and Tanya for presenting tonight and sharing all this awesome stuff with us, and thanks to you for watching. I think we'll end it there. There's a couple of YouTube links that I popped in the chat, so if any of the videos were freezing earlier, I'll apologize for my internet blip. Any of the videos that were freezing earlier, you can watch by following those links. I think that's us. So I think Ewan's got one more thing to say.
Yeah, I just forgot any of the Alpine other disciplines that are with us today. If you haven't already, is to join in on the BASI Nordic Facebook site, and you know, let's try and use that more and more. And any of these questions, we can bring them in there, and that was it for me.
Perfect. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.